Hi everyone, hola mi gente, ¿cómo están? It is Tuesday, which means that this is a new episode to the new series, My Curly Hair Journey. Today I'm going to be talking about different ways that I did my hair in the beginning of my curly hair journey, and maybe it can help you, maybe it can show you something different, give you some guidance. I know for those of you listening on the podcast, it may be a little bit weird that I'm talking to you about my hair and how to do it because you can't see me. You can always go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dear Journey, to see exactly what I am doing visually. But for those of us who can learn verbally, this one's for you. So it's going to be very simple. And then I'm also going to go into self-love and how this curly hair journey propelled me to really love myself in my natural state. And what happens is when you're going natural is that in the very beginning, you're excited, you're pumped, it's something new, you are so, ready for the change. And then the true transition part of that journey comes to play, where you actually have to deal with the decisions and what comes with that. So usually for the curly hair transition, what comes is a lot of frizzy hair, a lot of bad hair days, and a lot of self-doubt, because then you start thinking, why am I even doing this? And then it goes and you start to question a lot of things about yourself. If you're deep, if you're not, as my lovely friend will say, if you're on the surface, you're just like, this is ugly, I just want my hair straight or curly, like I don't want this in between. So I'm gonna dive right in. Last night, I deep conditioned my hair. I usually leave it overnight, but you can absolutely only do 30 minutes to an hour, whatever works for you. I love overnight because I just take a shower at night, put the deep conditioning in, and then in the morning I wake up and just rinse it out. Like it's very simple for me in my schedule. So you have to do what works for you in your schedule, and just know that this is your journey, not mine. Do what works for you. All right, so the very first thing is that I have my head split down the middle. This is not necessarily something that I do all the time, but this is the only way that I can visually show you and be attentive to my podcast, which is my number one priority. Those who have been listening to me since the very beginning, I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I really do appreciate that. No matter what I talk to from the spectrum of life, you are still here listening. So that makes me feel very great. So what I did is my hair is very drenched. There are parts that are already drying out. My hair dries pretty fast. I have it split down the middle, and what I'm going to show you is two different methods. One is squish to condition, which basically just means that you're just squishing the products into your hair every time that you apply it. A lot of curly girls only use this for their conditioner, but this is how I how I condition my hair when I'm in the shower, but this is also how I do my hair when I turn off the water and style my hair. And then I'm also going to show you finger coils, because when I first started, I didn't have a curl pattern. I had just had my little boy. My hair was not curling as it used to before, because I've always had curly hair. So I would finger coil to kind of remind my curls their pattern. I don't really finger coil on my hair at all unless it's in the front because it's too frizzy. But I do finger coil my daughter's hair. So if you follow me on Instagram at Christine's Dear Journey, you do see that I finger curl her hair a lot. So if your hair, once you get out the shower, this is what you should do as soon as you get out the shower. You don't have to put on your clothes, do nothing. Just flip your head over and do these techniques. And I'm telling you, it would make doing your hair much faster. Because right now, I've waited about 10 minutes to get on here and show you the process, and my hair's already drying up. So I do have a water bottle with me, a spray water bottle. I'm going to go ahead and wet the areas where I can feel that it is wet, drying up. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to do one side, or one half finger coils and one half just curly, so that you can see the difference. I hope that when I go to my meeting today, I don't look like a fool, but I just want you to know that I appreciate you and you matter to me, so I'm doing it. So I am splitting my hair. It's already split down the middle. I'm also going to split it on the top I have alligator clips that I usually use for this. And then I'm going to take my products. Today I'm going to use the same exact products that I used last week just to show you the difference. This is the Shea Moisture Curl Enhancing Smoothie. Sorry guys. I forgot to turn on the light for my YouTube video and I just did it and it's super bright. Okay, so it's the Shea Moisture Curl Enhancing Smoothie. I took some products into my hand. I am squishing it around in my hands. Typically when I'm doing this, my hair is already soaking wet. So I just literally do prayer hands to my curls. And prayer hands, literally, you're putting your hands together, your hair in between, and you're smoothing it into your hair. And then once you have done that, you're going to go ahead and just squish your hair upward. And on my podcast, I know you can hear that squish. And you want to hear that squish. Because it just means that you're putting the conditioner into the hairs, into the follicles. So those watching me on YouTube, you can see the process. I'm just squishing up. And then I'm going to the other side. This process, literally, it takes me a very short time to do my hair. I can't tell you exact amount because then you're listening to me and watching me. And then if I don't fulfill that time, I feel bad. So just pay attention. So I just went on the other side. I'm doing prayer hands. And I'm also like just smoothing the product into my hair down. So I am pulling on my hair a little. Okay, now I'm doing prayer hands and now I'm going to squish it. So hear out for this, my podcast listeners. It's just squishy, squishy. And then that's it for putting the products in my hair. What I am doing is I'm taking a little bit and make sure that I'm getting some at my roots. Then I go ahead with some gel. I'm using the Aunt Jackie's flaxseed curling gel. So I go back, do prayer hands again, swipe it down my hair, and then I squish again. Well, it's called squish to condition, but I'm squishing to put the products in. That's how I do it. Now for this video on my YouTube, you're going to be able to see what it looks like diffused after I finish recording. I'll come back and I'll show you a picture. Okay, so the back of my hair is already completed. And now I am taking the top half and splitting it one more time. So now it's still split down the middle. And then this would be 3 parts on each side. So the reason I'm doing that is because I realized that I took off too much. Like the bottom half is just not enough. And the top half had too much hair. So I don't finger coil. I used to finger coil my whole hair, but I don't do that anymore. But I am going to show you, I am going to finger coil the top of my head so that you see how that is. So again, I'm just taking that split area. I'm smoothing in the products into my hair. And then I'm going to squish. So squish, squish, squish. Grab some gel, use my prayer hands, and squish back up. So I'm smoothing it out, meaning I'm pulling it down, and then I'm squishing back up so that all the products are getting in the hair and it has its own curl pattern. So this is good when you're conditioning your hair in the shower. You want to do this to your conditioner because it'll allow you to condition your whole head. And when you have curly hair, conditioning is the best. I think conditioning is best no matter what kind of hair you have because your hair needs that type of moisture. So I'm on the other side already. I have some gel, again, smoothing it onto my hair. And if you hear the squish, that's what it should sound like every time you're applying your products because it means that you have enough product to cover your head. Okay, so now I am on the third part or the top of my hair. I'm going to do one side at a time. I'm going to put the products on the same way, all around, and then I'm going to finger coil. So my hair gets the frizziest in the very front. And that's because, fun fact, when I was a little girl, I used to suck my thumb and I used to use a pacifier for a very long time. And I had a very bad habit of rubbing my pacifier on the baby hairs of my head and ripping it out. I have no idea why I did that. So what I do is I have all of the top part that I kept. I'm going to just pick out small amounts of hairs. And this is best if you see it on my YouTube channel. And then I'm just going to literally coil or curl the hair on my finger as if I'm doing a twist. And I'm going to do it all the way to the very end of my hair. And I just twist, 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 twist. I bring it all the way to the top and then I let it go. And then I grab another piece. And I just continue this process until my whole hair is, or this part of it at least in this case, is finger coiled. And then later, once my hair is dried, I'm going to go ahead with Righteous Roots oils or gel and separate the curl so that it is without frizz and it's not clumped. So let's dive into why or how this curly hair journey propelled me into self-love. So briefly, I mentioned earlier that once you're doing the curly hair process, there's a lot of mental just like a lot of mental things that you go through. One, because you don't feel as beautiful because you're transitioning from doing one thing to another, and your hair doesn't always cooperate. Your hair doesn't always look like the Instagram influencers or the YouTubers where their hair is super curly, a lot of volume, they diffuse, and it just looks like a beautiful crown of curls. So in the beginning, you start to, when you don't see results, it always makes you question yourself. And I think one of the things that I am doing my best at is not speak in absolutes, because I know that we're not all the same and it's not always and all. So forgive me if I put everyone in one category as an absolute, because I know that we are all different. So this was my experience. In the beginning, it was just, I can just pick up my flat iron and just flat iron my hair. And I used to do it so often that it was easy for me. And it didn't take me a long time. And, at least if my hair was straight, even though it was hot and humid here in Florida, I can just put it in a ponytail or in a messy bun and it would still look really good. And I didn't have to necessarily worry about my hair. And then here I go into this natural state. Before I did the curly hair method, my hair was always curly, so I just thought I'd just do it like I always did, and I didn't know that I had to learn a very new process of doing my hair. So because I had to learn a new way of doing my curly hair, something that I was always doing, it was a challenge because there's always so many methods and everybody does it different, and one size doesn't fit all, so the information becomes extremely overwhelming. So what I used to do then is watch a lot of YouTube videos and then get discouraged. But not discouraged that I would quit, it just would discourage me because I just felt like no one was being straightforward. So it is a very hard thing to go through, the transition, because your hair doesn't cooperate and it doesn't always happen overnight, which is normal, duh. But I think we have to remind ourselves that life just doesn't happen overnight. Like nothing happens overnight. So in that process, I had to learn how to embrace a lot of frizz, because my hair was always frizzy, like crazy frizzy. And because it was frizzy, it meant it was so big and so like a lion. I hear a lot of us say lioness, but they don't really have a big mane like a lion. But anyway, so I had to embrace the frizz and like understand that it was part of it, because every time I would see the frizz, like I wanted to put more products. So I would like put so much product in my hair would be weighed down. And then it didn't look so fluffy and beautiful like the curly hair community shows so often. So that would discourage, you know, because it's like, okay, what is it, just my hair? Maybe I never thought, you know, a lot of times we don't think it's us, that it was me, the way that I was doing my hair. I thought it was just that my hair wouldn't curl the way everybody else's would. And then, you know, there's a lot of comments like, are you going to do your hair? And I'm like, Dad, I did do my hair. I did do my hair. This was the result. And that's the kind of thing that kind of discourages you. If you've grown up with big hair and you always have people telling you things like, in Spanish, pajonúa, dregueña, you know, y ese pajón, or when are you going to do your hair? What's that big puff? Like, when are you going to comb it? Are you going to go to the salon? Different things like that, you know? So you have to be thick-skinned to know that, like, people are going to say stuff and you just have to, like, let it slide off of you. Like, don't let it stick to you. One, people always say, like, the most randomest things. They don't always mean it to personally hurt you. You know, I learned that in the book of the 4 Agreements. Like, just don't take it personal. Sometimes people are going through their own thing, and sometimes hurt people. And they'll say things that they don't necessarily mean to make you feel that bad. And you would hear then people say like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. But because you took it so personal, which was one of the biggest things that I had to go through this week, that it kind of like just puts you down for a while. So one of the things that I started to do is focus and not focus so much on my hair and focus on myself and understand that, okay, maybe my hair is not how I want it to be right now. And I talk about the hair so much because it's such a big part of who I am. Meaning, if my hair is messed up, it doesn't matter anything else because I look crazy, you know? And what I would just do is just put it in a messy ponytail and a messy bun all the time. And that gets tiring. I used to get a lot of migraines because my hair was always up. And I can honestly say that the only times I get headaches now is if I pick my hair up for a very long time. So, you know, it affects in so many different ways that someone who doesn't have to deal with this type of hair may not understand. It may be that I put too much emphasis in my hair, but it just matters so much because it's always been a thing since I was a little girl about my hair. My mom used to braid the very baby hairs, like the very front of my hairs, and very thin braids, almost to give me like my own bangs. But it was because there was no way to maintain all that frizz. And a lot of my pictures, my hair's like wild. It looks like a tent, how big and just outward was when I was younger. So it's always been something that was important or part of something, a reason why somebody would say something to me when I was little. So that's why it's such a big thing now, because for me, well, it was, because I guess now I just don't care because I have already learned how to do the hair, and can't nobody tell me nothing about my hair because I take care of it and I do my best with it. So my hair is finally finger coiled and I am done, and I'm just going to let it air dry, and then later on, once I get off the video and off the podcast, I'll diffuse it and put a picture of my final results onto the YouTube channel and on my Instagram at Christine's Dear Journey. Okay, so because my hair was such a big part of my life, and I guess it still is in some ways, but not really, because I've learned to manage and maintain it, that it doesn't take as much of my time, is that when you don't know how to take care of something and you're constantly stressing over it, it becomes such a big part of your life. And then once you learn it, it's almost like, oh, that was it? Like, that wasn't such a big deal. So I think I've lost my train of thought. If you're listening, I wish you could tell me where I was. But if I think about it just a little bit, I'll get back on track. Okay, how it's not as important anymore. because I've learned how to manage it. But it was before, because I didn't know how to manage it, was something that I would think about constantly. So what I had to do is stop focusing on the fact that my hair wasn't curling or looking like I wanted to right now, and focus on me and who I was. You know, I'm still a wife, I'm still a mom, I'm still an entrepreneur. So obviously other things, you know, I wasn't just thinking of one thing at a time. I think a lot of times when we share, it seems like we're only thinking about one thing at a time, but I'm just sharing a snip of the thoughts that I had in these times. It just wasn't one thing. So, but I think the inner focus on who you are and is important. So instead of focusing on what I look like physically, I started to focus on who I was mentally, who I was internally, and some of the things that you go through. And I was preface this like this, like, I'm not perfect. This week has been a very trying week for me. And at many times I thought, well, I'm not going to record the podcast because who am I to tell people to love themselves and be this kind of loving person towards themselves when right now I'm going through a really tough time. And what I would say is, like, that's a lie. You know, we all are going through transitions. You know, like right now, maybe I may not be where I was a few years ago, or a few years ago I felt like I was at a better place than I am now mentally. But life is a process. It's literally a journey. Like right now I may feel really good and tomorrow may be something different. So what I went through in those good times of learning myself, that's what I'm going to share with you. And I hope that it would inspire me again to do those things again so that I can get back into focus. So the first thing is that I took the Enneagram personality test, which I mentioned on my Instagram last week. And the Enneagram personality test just literally is, you're just answering a questionnaire. It usually takes anywhere from 10 to 18 minutes, depending on, you know, how fast you read and what your distractions are. And it just asks you so many different scenarios and how you would react in those types of situations. And then you get your results. And usually you get a 3-part result, which will mean like your main personality is 1 number, because they use the typology of interconnected personalities using numbers. So you'll receive your highest number of what personality you are the most, and then 2 other personalities that also kind of complement that very first one. And the Enneagram, the reason why I brought it up and why it became a thing, it was because the first lady of the church that I used to go to introduced it to me. And at that time, you know, I was going through a transition time mentally as well. And what the Enneagram did for me is it helped me understand myself. It helped me to give myself, or have more compassion towards myself, be more kind to myself, and just understand that we are so different as humans. And it's not to say that the different birthday signs are not right, but I think this individualizes to people and not kind of puts people into a box. So for instance, my husband and I are not both Libras, so we're not both the same. But when we took the Enneagram test, we actually had 2 numbers in common. So the horoscopes will say we're not very similar, but when you take the Enneagram, it'll show you that your personality is actually very similar. And how that affects is because if I think a certain way, or I react to something a certain way, and so does my husband, then we can understand each other from a personality trait. So it's a test that helps you understand who you are and others around you, what affects them, what triggers them. And the Enneagram also shows you how you act, what other personalities you become, because we're all multiples of personalities. What other personality affects, like what personality you are if you're going through stress or if you're going through growth. So you're not only one personality all the time. You know, that's why it's so amazing. We're, as humans, are so amazing that we can adapt and change and be so affected by the things that is going on around us. So I'll just tell you, from the Enneagrams, there are 9 personalities. There's 1, the reformer, which is my actual number. That's my number 1 personality. There's 2, the helper. 3, the achiever. 4, the individualist. 5, the thinker. 6, the loyalist. 7, the enthusiast. And I'm number 7 is my second number. 8 is the leader, and 9 is the peacemaker. And I'm also number 3, the achiever. So understanding those personalities, right? What those personalities do during stress and during growth helps you understand yourself. Sometimes we question ourselves, like, why do I do this? Like, I don't understand why I know that this is right or this is wrong, but I still do this. And if you study the Enneagram, I'm not just saying take a test that gives you the results and then that's it, but like really study the history of the Enneagram and why it came about, and the intricacies of the Enneagram, not just the 2-second results that you would get. You'll understand that you are much more complex, and there's reasons why you react the way you react. So understanding that about myself allowed me to have a lot of compassion for myself, be kinder to others and even to myself, and just understand that we're all going through different things, and stress looks different for everyone, and growth looks different for everyone. So that was a good way to learning myself and loving myself. Like, okay, you know what? I am that person not because I am bad, or I am this personality not because it's a bad or good thing. It's not a moral thing. It's just, that's my personality. So once I learned that, I started to forgive myself for a lot of the things that I do, because a lot of the things that I do is because it's a reaction to something, not necessarily that I am that. I don't know if that makes sense, but do the Enneagram test. It's really a good eye-opener, and it just helps you face those issues. And, you know, there are things that I saw by myself, like, you know what, I do have a lot of anger, you know, because of past things that have happened to me, or that I allow to happen to me, or that I did myself. And if you don't heal those kinds of hurt for my personality type, it will always show up in my actions. So then, because I learned that about myself, then I had to reflect. And I think one of the hardest things is having to face that there is pain and trauma and issues from the past. So once you face them, and it takes a lot, right? Because you have to kind of relive those events and emotions and feel them again. And what I would advise you to do is to feel your emotions, like feel those things and not try to suppress them. And the reason I would advocate for that is because sometimes when we feel them and go through the motions, we can release those emotions and not necessarily suppress them and kind of bottle them up. So you feel them and then you move on, you know, and then you do with that what you feel is right, you know. I was listening, ironically, to another podcast last night with this lady, Miss Pat. And I didn't do much research on her. I don't really know. But she says so many things in that podcast that resonated with my past and my kind of childhood. And she was completely hilarious. And she was laughing at some of the things that she went through. And she said, you know, until you can laugh at the things that you went through, you know, laughter can be a way of healing that kind of pain. So I cannot laugh on a lot of the things that I went through. I'm not there yet. I don't think laughter for me is the key, but for some, it may be some way that you can heal. Not for me, because I still don't think it's funny. I don't think it's funny at all. The next thing I would say is that learning to love yourself, it's levels. Like, you know, I see a lot of people like self-care and self-love, and I'm going to do my nails, and I'm going to do a face mask, and I'm going to get a pedicure and manicure, and I'm going to go do my hair, and I'm going to pamper myself, and that's self-love. I think that is a level of self-love that you're, you know, pouring into yourself and taking care of your physical, that is definitely a form of self-love. But I think self-love also means that you talk to the inner child in you, that you go back and kind of hug, cuddle, and walk that young person in you that may have had to grow up faster than the allotted time, and just kind of like go through those motions of healing that inner child who may have felt certain emotions. And the way that that shows up is when you hear stories of other children and how you can relate to children in their state or where they are in life. And that's usually because you have felt like that before. So one of the ways that was a big thing for me is Amelia, who is 8, she's my daughter, is a talker. Like she's just like me. She loves to talk and she loves to ask questions and is very inquisitive, very curious. And for a lot of people, she's very annoying, because like I was when I was younger. And it's not that she is annoying, because I don't find her annoying. It's just that she wants to know and she wants to understand. So the inner child in me would just take Amelia and I would listen to her, give her the time that she needed. But I was doing it for Amelia because I knew she needed it, because that's what I needed. So that's how that shows up. That young person in you that maybe has some healings to go through, and you have to go through that process. You have to, then go back and, okay, you give that child attention or information or however you deal with the situation, but you have to go back to yourself, and I would go to my private time and just think about, like there's a lot of things that I went through as a child that would be considered a young person, a teenager, going through the motions of a teenager, having an attitude, being ungrateful, not understanding how life works, being selfish. And looking back, I don't think that every teenager is going through that stage. What I think is, it's just a notion that we have in our head that teenagers are ungrateful, they don't understand, they're in their emotions, they're annoying. And because we've already put them in that kind of box, we don't give them the time to understand that they're going through a transition in their life from being or a kid to being a tween to being a teenager. Like they're going through a lot of emotional transition. They're going through a lot of physical transition. Their eyes are open that life wasn't what they always thought it was, and they kind of see life for what it is now. So they're going through a lot of changes, and it's not that they're necessarily not thinking about the parent or the situation at hand. It just may be that their mind is overwhelmed with the issues that they're trying to grasp in their mind. So for me, that's how I felt when I was a teenager. And I just felt like I wasn't heard, I wasn't seen, and I had to go and figure things out on my own. So because I went through those kinds of emotion when I was younger, as an adult, because I never faced them and because I always would just mask it and move on and life had to go on and never face them, in my transition time, that's how I learned to self-love. I had to go back to the emotions that I would feel when I was a young person and kind of go through those emotions and say, you know what, it wasn't that your mom or your dad didn't think that you were important and that they didn't want to know what you were going through. It was just that moms and dads are figuring out life while they're raising their children. It's not that moms and dads have it figured out when you have a teenager and you've made it to this adulthood or this utopia where you know everything. No, you're a human being still trying to figure things out while raising your kids. And I think that when we're younger, we just expect our parents to know, to have it figured out, and that they should be readily available for us. So the perception, we both fail to understand, which is one of the things that, if you understand yourself, if you understand the things that are going on around you, it gives you a sort of peace and allows you to have grace and show kindness to people, because you understand that the situation you're going through is not happening to you. It's something that you're going through. So in the book, The 4 Agreements, not to take things personal, I wish I would have known how important that was as a teenager, to not take what was happening to me personal, but it was a situation. It's just a process that I had to go through. It wasn't happening towards me, that I wasn't being listened to or understood. It was just something that was happening because, you know, my parents had just gotten married. They were, you know, in their honeymoon stages. You know, they were very much in love. And now looking back, I'm glad that they took their time to get to know each other and enjoy those times, because you just, as you get older, as you think through the things that you have gone through, you start to, if you really want to, if you're not angry and if you're not holding grudges, and if you just understand that not everyone is going through what you're going through at a time that you're going through it, and that is okay. Like, it is okay that you are going through something right now and someone doesn't understand what you're going through, and it is not their job to understand what you're going through. It's not their job to heal you or coddle you or make you feel a certain way. Like, you have to go and live your journey for yourself, so that once you heal from that, move on from that, learn from that, grow from that, then you can go and share that where there is no anger and confusion. I hope that makes sense. So once I tapped into the things that, some of the things that I was holding on to, then I started to, you know what, like, this is who I have been because of the things that I've gone through. But that doesn't make me necessarily, you know, whether a bad or a good person. I'm a number 1 in the Enneagram, so everything to me is a moral, good, bad, right, wrong. Very perfectionist, like. So that's why I use those words. I know that everyone does not think in that form. You know, you're not thinking about whether something is right or wrong. You know, some of us are very emotional and we're thinking about, does it feel good or does it not feel good? So I understand that. And as you study the Enneagram and the other personalities, not just your own, you understand where people are coming from and how they function in life. So it's a very good resource. It was for me. It still is. I still listen to a lot of podcasts about the Enneagram, not just my numbers, but others. One of the things I will tell you is, once you take the Enneagram and you study and you do your information, don't put people in a personality trait, because sometimes they have triggers of something that doesn't make them mainly that personality trait, if that makes any sense. So self-love usually, and again, I'm not a psychologist. I didn't go to school and study all of these things. I just know that what I'm going through or what I've gone through, these are the ways that I've dealt with them. I do read a lot of articles and studies and case studies about the human brain, how we think, how we function, how experiences affect us, etc. Because I'm interested in, because I think in my past life I should have been a psychologist or something like that. I don't know. So once you start to face the issues that you have in your heart, you know, the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And I think a lot of times when we say a lot of things, we want to, all of a sudden, or if we think it's offensive, we always say, oh, I'm just joking. Like, oh, I was just playing. But out of the heart speaks a lot of the troubles that we have and the things that we have within us. And if we don't face those things, we would continue to, like, hurt people. And we would continuously think that we're okay just because we quote unquote feel that we're okay, and not because we're facing the issue. You know, there's always underlying issues. So loving yourself, there are levels. You know, there's a physical part, you start taking care of yourself. You know, for me, it was my curly hair journey. You know, but another level is that you have to face that kind of inner pain, trauma, and issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. I think right now, mental health is such a big topic. You know, a lot of people say that they are going through some mental health issues. And mental health is absolutely real. And the issues a lot are, I would say, it's not that we are all, or it's not that we all have mental health issues, or the most of us, you know, some of us self-diagnose ourselves. Is that we haven't faced issues that we're going through. Not necessarily that you are like that because you were born that way. You know, there are people who have legit mental issues that they need medication every single day. You know, they need professional help to deal with those issues, to work through those issues, and to maintain, because it's who they are. You know, depression is not just a one moment thing. You know, a lot of people live in depression every single day, can still smile in your face, but they're taking medications, they're, you know, doing the actions to maintain that mental health. You know, and then there's mental health that's caused by traumas that you've gone through that you have not dealt with. And, you know, you haven't faced them on your own, you haven't seen a therapist, you know, you haven't healed. And I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, this is just my ideology, my thoughts, is that those things can be healed. You know, not all mental health is permanent. Not self-diagnosed mental health is permanent. I think a lot of it is that we don't want to do the hard work, and we just like to label so that we don't have to deal with it, you know, so that we can be a little bit forgiven. And I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm saying that there are some that self-diagnose, that it is my opinion that if you don't heal yourself, if you don't go through those emotions and talk to someone about that, a therapist, a psychologist, you know, your best friend, your mom, whoever you speak to, that if you don't get those things from out of your head and get out of your own head, that absolutely it may feel like you're mentally ill, but it's just that you're not willing to face those emotions. And it's hard, you know, like, I'm not telling you that going through any of the emotions are, you know, it's easy. You know, I think I said I want to keep it real raw, and I feel myself already tearing up, is that, you know, a lot of us from the inner cities, so many of us can agree that we all have one experience that is common, and it's really sad. You know, I think if you've gone through it, you know what I'm talking about. And I think that if you are aware of your surroundings, you know what I'm talking about. And it's sad that statistically, 80% of young girls and boys who grow up in our inner city have experienced some type of event in their life that drastically changes them, you know? And I don't think a lot of us talk about it. We don't speak out on it. We don't really share with others. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of us who have experienced that, when we do speak to someone, you'll realize how you're not the only one in the room. Like, you're not the only one in the room, and it's more of us than there are of people who've never experienced it. So, you know, that's a trauma that definitely needs to be spoken about. You know, you can always slide in my DMs, Christine's Dear Journey on Instagram, comment or send me an email at ourdearjourney@gmail.com. If you don't have anyone to speak to, you know, I am very fortunate that I have a mom who is very open with me, who loves me very much, and her biggest desire is that I never feel alone. So because I have, you know, such a great support system, I know that it's hard when you don't have anyone to talk to, but I've gone through a lot of crap in my life, gone through and been through and put myself through, that I probably can relate to you or can do my best to understand you. So when you start to heal, feel those emotions, heal it, really go through a healing process. I can't think of it right now, but I know there's 5 steps to healing. And I know grieving is one. I know anger is one. I know, and I can't think of the others, but I know that there's a process. You have to go through those emotions per situation that has caused you to become the person that you are, so that you can start to love yourself and forgive yourself for not loving yourself. Forgive yourself for self-inflicting situations and circumstances because you think that you don't deserve or not worthy of certain things because of what you go through in your brain, what you've gone through in your experiences. And I'm just here to tell you, like I told you last week, like, you are worthy. You are special. You know, you were created with a purpose. My cousin, we have a family chat, and she sent us this crazy meme that was hilarious. And it was, you know, the girl says, "Mom, I think you should pay for my bills because I didn't ask to be here." And the mom says, "Well, you chose me. Like, you, as a sperm, you are the one that races, you know, out of the, I don't know, these numbers are off, but just for perspective, out of the, you know, 100,000 sperms that are released, you won the race and you came to my egg. Like, you chose me. You chose me as your parent. So you have to pay me for taking care of you." I just thought it was funny. Anyway, maybe it would be funnier if I just shared it on my, I think I already shared it. I'll reshare it for those who are listening to the podcast. But anyway, basically, like, we race to be here. We chose to be here. I think a lot of times we tell ourselves, "I didn't ask to be, you know, to be born. Like, I didn't ask you to, out of anger, like, to be in this life." But actually, like, we chose it. You know, we were the one that raced to that egg, you know, in the lovemaking process to be here. You know, we could have just been like lazy Susan and just didn't make it. But anyway, sometimes I'm super silly and my jokes are not that funny, but I find myself extremely hilarious, if you must know. So anyway, like, we were created with a purpose. And sometimes I think when we hear that, we think like we have to go out there and we have to be Bill Gates and, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, and we have to create like these fancy apps and change the world. And your purpose can just literally be something simple. You don't have to be this extravagant person who has to be Instagram or YouTube famous or make it in the workforce. And no, like, sometimes you were just created for simple things. And in a world where everything is so microwave and so fast and it has to happen, and if I'm not, you know, let me just tell you, when I was growing up, it just seemed like this is what the ideology was. Like, you have to, as a woman, you know, you grow up. I mean, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, then you get married, then you have a kid, you own a house, and you're supposed to do all of this by like 30, 32, 35. Like, that's not reality, you know? And you would find that a lot of people who did the process will tell you that they regret not living their life, you know? So don't put yourself into a circle so much, or to a box that you have to do these things by this time. It's great to have goals. It's great to be ambitious and to go after your dream, but don't block yourself from so many blessings because you have to do one thing. And, you know, I don't think we all only have one purpose. You know, many of you may not be religious, and maybe you don't read the Bible. It doesn't have any truth to you. But I think there are some principal things that are spoken about in the Bible that would actually help you understand that maybe you don't believe the stories. Maybe there is no God. There is no Jesus for you. And I get that. But there are some principal proverbs. And one of the things is, in all of your doing, like, just be kind to others. And that in itself, being kind and showing love and being good to others, that's a great purpose. Like, if you are just kind and loving and with other people, you'll learn that you'll start to build relationships because you're not judging, you're not condemning. You're literally just loving people for who they are. You're being kind to yourself. And you'll find that you'll grow so many more relationships and things with so much more purpose than if you were just this cold-hearted, I'm on my goal, I can't talk to you, can't hang out with you, can't do this, can't do that, because I had to do this one thing. No, like if the main thing you focus on every single day is to just be a better version of you while working towards other things, like it's the little things in life that add up to be like this big, major, wonderful life that you have. So when you wake up in the morning, have a mindset of gratitude. Like there are so many people that didn't wake up today. So many people that had so many plans for their life and they didn't open their eyes, I have a family member who passed away. And I didn't have a relationship with him. I didn't. But you can hear it in my voice. You can see it on my YouTube channel, But there are so many people that love this man for the amazing person that he was on a day-to-day basis. It was that there was always laughter in his voice, that there was always love in his behavior, and that he was always looking at the bright side of things. And his name is Benedito, and I find myself crying so much to know that someone like that is no longer here on earth. And here I am, and I have all this ability to walk, to talk, to sing, to listen to music, to wake up, to kiss my children, to kiss my husband, to just be alive. And he doesn't have that. And he was, in so many ways, there's always some type of survivor's guilt when a family member or a friend or a loved one passes, that you feel like he was so deserving of life, So when you wake up with gratitude that the sun is coming out, that you can see it, that you can see the beauties of life. And, when I was growing up in Newark, I would always hear this from people, and I would say, like, I live in Newark, like, it's dirty, it's dark, it's gloomy, the buildings are like so dark, there's graffiti everywhere, there's garbage everywhere. Don't focus on those things, there's beautiful skies. Like, there's a creator of this earth that took their time and placed every single thing where it's at. Admire the little things, Just be grateful. Find gratitude that you have 2 pairs of socks or a pair of socks, that you have shoes to put on your feet, that your hands are mobile, that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can see, that you can smell, and if you are, impaired in any way and that you don't have the abilities to do any of the things that I mentioned, you're alive. Someone didn't wake up today. Someone is being buried, and those loved ones are mourning and crying. Just wake up with the mentality that you can be the catalyst of change for someone. That your smile, that your kindness today, that your love that you share, that your compassion that you express with others, that can change someone. And when you change someone or give someone the ability to feel alive or with a purpose, you change them, and then they change others. And guess what? You change the world, with one action. And I know that sounds like, oh my goodness, Christine, chill. But we literally are made for one another here. Like, we are made to work as each other's hands and feet. There are people who came before us, our ancestors, who they did a lot of work for us to live the life that I have. Like, I can't imagine how my great grandmother would have the ability that I have now, and she doesn't. She didn't, because technology wasn't the same, but also because society wasn't the same. There are people who came before us to make the path that we walk in today. Yes, we can wake up and go to Starbucks and buy all this, convenience, but someone paved the way for us. So it is our duty as humans to pave the way for others. And I think if you live with the purpose that I have to be kind, I have to be compassionate, I have to love others for where they are, who they are, and where they're going, no matter what, I think we can be that little bit of hope that everyone needs. This is a longer podcast than I've done in a few weeks. And I just think that it's important that we take care of our mind, our bodies, exercise, stay in motion so that you can run with your children, so that you can be fit, so that you can feel great about yourself. But I think, dealing with your heart and those inner emotions and things that we go through, that's very important too. It's important because hurt people, but if you're healed, then what you can do as a healed person or a healing person is help somebody else heal. Walk them through the process so that they can go through that kind of change. Those are my 2 cents, or my 1 hour cents. There are different ways to do all the things that I talk about, and I'm just sharing with you my dear journey in hopes that I can inspire you, motivate you, or encourage you to take the step to live your dream life. A dream life does exist. We all have dreams and visions of what we see ourselves doing and being. And if you take that one hard step, whatever it is for you, then you can then move to the next level of wherever it is, or of whatever it is that you want to do. So I'll share it with you. Right now, I'm at a place where I feel like I'm at a crossroad. And I think what holds me back from making a decision is, well, I know it's fear. But it's fear of the unknown and fear of judgment, and also fear of failing. And although I listen to a lot of personal development, and I read a lot of or listen to a lot of books, and I read a lot of studies and things online about different mental health issues and stuff. Although I know all the things that I know, it's still very hard because I have to live day in and day out with a decision that I make. And that's scary because, it's great to say, I want to have $1 million by the time I'm 30 years old. Well, I'm 31, so that's not going to happen for me. But that was one of my goals. I'm going to have $1 million by the time I'm 30 years old. But to get to $1 million, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of thick skin, and a lot of consistency, persistency, and just constant developing of yourself. Because when I was in the network marketing company that I was in, it was a lot of personal development. What got me to $100 is not going to get me to 1,000. What got me to 1,000 is not going to get me to 100,000. So you're ever changing and evolving as you want to get to whatever goal you're getting to. But you have to live day in and day out in those actions, and that can be tough. So I think that's what I fear the most in this point in my life. And the fear almost caused me not to have my podcast, to be like, oh, I'll put it off for a week because I'm not mentally stable, and I don't want to give people, tell people about, help or depress people, or like not have good energy. But then I realized, like, this is the journey. This is the process. If I don't share this part, the bad part, or the scary or hard, challenging part, then I'm doing you a disservice. So, what I'm going to do, I have no idea. I have no idea. I have to really process all that I'm feeling, and, and feel the emotions and go through the process, Maybe, who knows? Maybe I can share with you something in the future about what this all was, and maybe it becomes what I want it to be, and maybe it doesn't ever become what I want it to be because I become more level-headed or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know. And that's where I'm at. And that's okay. Like, it's okay for you not to know something and work through the process. But it's not okay to not know something and not do nothing about it, because inaction is an action. You're making a decision not to do nothing. So, yeah. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening to the end. If you're listening to me on my podcast, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. If you want to see the visual to this audio, head over to youtube.com/Dear Journey and see all of my hand gestures, see how I actually did my curly hair. It's actually air drying. It looks like what I always say, a dead rat. I mean, a wet rat, you know, like just like down, heavy, elongated curls. I'm going to go diffuse and share with you the results. So yeah, I appreciate you guys and peace out. Deuces. Bye.